Welcome back to the newsroom. You're watching Eye on Africa here on France 24. Let's take a look at our top stories in this edition. Rejecting the UN Protection Force, South Sudan says it will refuse to cooperate with the United Nations after the Security Council passes a resolution authorizing 4,000 more blue helmets to the young embattled country. Accusing Zambia's election commission of fraud, opposition candidate Hakainde Hichilema is pointing fingers, even as the scheduled announcement of early results from Thursday's presidential vote keeps getting pushed back. And rats to the rescue in Tanzania. Trained rodents in hospitals are proving more efficient at detecting tuberculosis than man-made tests. Our report will have you rethinking your revulsion for them. Rejecting the Security Council's resolution, South Sudan has repeatedly said, including here on France 24, that the resolution, quote, seriously undermines its sovereignty. 4,000 more African troops will boost the existing force to around 17,000. According to the resolution, the Blue Helmets will be allowed to use, quote, all necessary means to protect UN personnel and installations. The international force will also be authorized to take proactive measures to protect civilians from threats. From New York, France 24's Jessica Lemazurier reported earlier on what's at stake.
This resolution strengthens the UNMISS force in South Sudan. It brings it from 12,000 to 17,000, and it also threatens an arms embargo should the government in Juba not cooperate. The government has, of course, objected, as you said, to the addition of more troops under the UN umbrella, more peacekeepers. The most important part of this is that 4,000 extra blue helmets will make up this regional protection force. It'll be made up, according to diplomats here, of peacekeepers taken from countries neighbouring South Sudan, and they will mainly be based in Juba and also at the airport and in other areas, and their job will be the protection of civilians. They will essentially be able to combat rebels and also government forces who have, in some cases, been accused of attacking civilians.
Jessica, tell us, how bad is the situation in South Sudan?
The situation in South Sudan is dire, and it has been a lot worse over the past month or so. Some 70,000 people have fled to Uganda, according to the United Nations. There are some almost 5 million people who don't have enough to eat, 250,000 children who are severely malnourished at the moment in South Sudan. There's also a cholera outbreak there. There have been killings at the hands of rebels and of government forces, and also widespread rapes and gang rapes. The Deputy British Ambassador today at this meeting described an incident on the 18th of July in which some 16 women and 12 girls were stopped at an SPLA checkpoint and they were raped.
The results are not in yet, but one candidate is already crying fraud in Zambia. Hakainde Hichilema accuses the Election Commission of colluding with ruling party officers to delay announcing Thursday's election result.
The Electoral Commission is somehow conniving with people in the political arena to delay release of results. They start by refusing to issue polling station result certificate, but the Electoral Commission issued instructions for those certificates not to be issued at the polling station and wait until it's night time so that the PF thugs armed with guns can take over police stations and write new result certificates which are not authenticated.
A scheduled briefing with early results was pushed back several times this Friday. Unprecedented violence during the campaign left at least 3 people dead. The capital, Lusaka, is simmering with tension with a possible second-round vote if neither candidate gets more than 50%. Regional correspondent Caroline Dumais has more.
They are trying to steal our vote. This is what Hakainde Hichilema told journalists this afternoon, and his statement came as a bombshell after all day of waiting. Zambians thought that they would have their result this morning at 10 a.m., then at 12, then at 2 p.m., and no result. Then we were told that the 9 candidates were summoned to the electoral center. Tonight at 8 p.m., eventually the Electoral Commission announced the result of 3 constituencies of 156. That's very little. In Zambia tonight, people are slightly worried, confused, and the more the Electoral Commission asks not to worry, well, the more they do.
Back on to eradicate polio. In Nigeria, authorities have launched an emergency mass vaccination campaign. This after 2 cases were found in northeastern Borno state. The last time polio was discovered on the African continent was 2 years ago in Somalia. Charles Pellegrin has the story.
After a 2-year lull, Nigeria's fight against polio is set to start again.
Yesterday, we have announced that 2 cases of wild poliovirus were detected in northern Nigeria, in the state of Borno. This is particularly important and, I would say, a setback to the program, because on 24th of July, Nigeria had actually celebrated 2 years without a wild polio case.
If no new cases had been recorded by July 2017, the entire African continent, including Nigeria, would have been declared polio-free by the World Health Organization. But ever since the start of the Boko Haram insurrection in 2009, many areas in the north of the country are too dangerous for health workers to access, making vaccinations impossible.
This is an area which is not easily accessible, and this is probably why the virus has been able to circulate without being detected and is causing these cases.
The Islamic extremists actually oppose the anti-polio campaign, which they see as a tool for Western propaganda. In February 2013, 9 vaccinators were killed by the group's gunmen in Kano. Undeterred by this threat and faced with these new infections, the Nigerian government and the WHO say they are strengthening their immunization drive. The polio virus can only be stopped by vaccination. Once infected, children can be left permanently paralyzed.
Tensions continue to flare in Ethiopia after hundreds of protesters took to the streets in the Oromia and Amhara regions. Opposition parties urge the government to allow international observers in these areas. This week, the UN's High Commissioner for Human Rights called for allegations of excessive force to be investigated. Around 90 people are believed to have been shot dead by security forces at weekend rallies like this one, where police can be seen beating and dragging protesters in this amateur video.
We strongly request the ruling party and its government to immediately stop its mass killings, arrests, and persecutions, and to bring to justice those government officials who ordered and those individuals who executed those killings. We demand immediate compensation for those who have been affected, and we ask the government to immediately allow investigations by independent international bodies.
A new world record in Rio. Ethiopian track runner Almaz Ayana pulverized the 10,000-meter world record set back in 1993. She beat one of the longest-standing records in athletics by close to 14 seconds. The 24-year-old broke away from the pack mid-race and never let up, finishing in just 29 minutes and 31.78 seconds. Almaz Ayana's gold medal is Africa's first of the 2016 Olympics. It looks like man might have a new best friend in the animal kingdom, rats. That's right, rodents have an excellent nose. Researchers in Tanzania are putting them to work detecting tuberculosis, and they're proving more reliable than man-made tests. Not only that, but rats have been used to sniff out some 83,000 landmines around the world, mostly in Africa and Asia. It might be time to revisit our revulsion for rats.
These rats are part of a mine detection training unit in Tanzania, sniffing out the smell of explosives. They're named John Stewart and Stephen Hawking. And like the namesakes, these giant rats are out of the ordinary.
In these boxes, we have buried landmines, so the rat has to pass and sniff. And whenever find the smell of TNT over that landmine, he has to scratch strongly, and the trainer will click and give a reward.
Every year, landmines kill 15,000 to 20,000 people, most of them children. By deploying these rats, Belgium NGO Apopo has already neutralized more than 80,000 landmines in countries like Angola, Mozambique, and Cambodia.
In terms of landmine operation, they're weightless. They have less weight to detonate even live mines. So you can work them in any type of mines without any problem.
In a nearby laboratory, Violet and Oprah are moving from test tube to test tube, sniffing out the smell of tuberculosis. A purpose fiery force are being deployed to diagnose the disease, which kills more than 1 million people a year.
We increase with an average of 40% over the hospital results. So that gives a good yield of extra positive patients. And by doing so, so far we have already found 10,000 patients which were returned negative by hospitals. And those people, of course, go home, they continue infecting other people. So indirectly, I think we have saved more than 10,000 people.
One rat alone can screen 100 samples in 20 minutes compared to a lab technician who will take 4 days. But despite their successes against both landmines and TB, the Apopo team are sitting back. Their next mission for these rodents to detect cancer.
That's the end of this edition. Do stay tuned. There's more news coming up on France 24.